For a lot of people, AI Builder is one of the more mysterious components of the Power Platform. Well, today I'm going to show you a couple of really cool examples on how to use this very powerful tool. Hey everyone, my name is Jochen. I am a Power Platform consultant at Cegeka. And just how awesome would it be if we have some kind of ID recognition software that we can program ourselves and that we can use directly in Power Automate? Or how about automatically extracting certain elements of text from an email that you receive? Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, it must be your lucky day because today those are the exact two use cases that we are going to tackle. This video is an important part of our Hyperautomation series because obviously anything AI related very much has its place in the hyperautomation world. If you are interested in creating a complete start-to-finish hyperautomation solution with me, I highly suggest that you start from the beginning, which was the previous episode. I will leave a link to the whole playlist in the video description. Next to that, you will also find a link to the Cegeka website, should you need more information on the more theoretical part on the concept of hyperautomation. Now in this video, you will see that I have created a demo playground environment with some premium licenses as well. I can only invite you to do the same, so there will also be a link in the video description that will get you to a zip file. In that downloadable zip file, you will find all the information and files that you need to follow this entire series. If you don't care about any of that and you are just here to learn about AI Builder, also perfectly fine of course, but do know that you will need three things: a premium Power Apps license, an environment with Dataverse enabled, and some available AI Builder credits. Now, I'm not going to dive into the whole licensing situation with AI Builder. If you need more info on that, there is another link you can find in the video description. We are just going to dive straight in, but as always, let's first have a look at the actual use case that we are going to tackle. The AI Builder scenarios in this video will obviously be part of our Hyperautomation support ticket system, but it will also be very much possible to take what I show you in today's video and implement that into your own business processes. So in the previous video, we already laid the foundations for our ticket system, and today we are going to completely automate the customer creation process. Now, the only assumption that I'm going to make here is that we get the initial request for the customer creation by email in a predefined format. In reality, this could come from a website or a form that people have to fill in. I think you get the idea. And then the goal is to make sure that when that email comes in, that we have two AI models in place. We will use one model to process the ID card image that will be attached to the email, and then we will use a second model to extract some crucial text values from the actual email body. Once all of that is done, we will automatically start an approval request just to do a manual check, if you will, to see if the customer information that we received is actually valid. Eventually, we will also make sure that Power Automate automatically creates the record in our Dataverse table, which I am going to show you right now. As I mentioned already, we tackled our data preparation in the previous episode, but just for transparency, this is basically the only thing that we will need. I am in my Hyperautomation Heroes environment, which we also created in the previous episode. And in there, I can go to my solution that we created as well, being Ticket Hub. And if I click that, you will see that we already have three tables in here. And in today's video, we are going to use the HA_customer. And this is, by the way, also why you need that premium license, because Dataverse is a premium feature. And instead of showing you all the columns here, I'm just going to put a screenshot on screen with the structure of this table. It is pretty simple, but if you want to follow along, it is maybe best to just kind of mimic this table as well. And in this video, I will use two of my created users, being, of course, my admin user, because I basically develop everything with that user. And that will also be the user that gets the customer request email in my scenario. And I will also use the customer approval team user, so they will actually get the approval request that we will automatically send via Power Automate. And with that, it is time to dive into AI Builder. Let's create the two models that we will need today. Let's start by building the model that will process and analyze the email body text that comes in. So I went back to make.powerapps.com and we are now in our solution that we created in the previous episode. And you might think if I just go to all, for example, and then click new, that we would start from here, because if we create, for example, a Power App or a Power Automate flow, we actually did that from within the solution. But we are not going to do that here. We are going to create our AI models outside of our solution and we'll add them once we are done. And to do that, let's go back to solutions here. So basically to the landing page of this environment, if you will. And this is what we need, the AI Hub menu. So click that. And for the first AI model, we just need to click this one, prompts. And there are some templates available, but we are going to build our own prompt. So just click this top button here. And let's start by giving this a proper name, which will be HA for Hyperautomation, AI Builder, email, body, prompt, or something like that. And now the first thing that I want to do is click this button here, which says input. And if I do that, I'm going to add input text. I'm going to give this the name email body. And as the sample data, I'm going to put in the actual text that I know will be in that customer request email that comes in. And I'm just going to copy paste a certain text from a text file, and that text file is also included in that zip file that you can download. So this will be the email that comes in. A new customer request has been filed. Below you can find the information. First name Andy, last name Bernard, address Office Lane 88, phone number, email address andy.nardog@broccolirob.com. Yes, I love the office. Desired currency US dollar. Kind regards, the customer registration platform. So that literally is the email text that will come in. And now I can use this input parameter in my prompt. And I can say, I would like you to extract the information found in the text below. Only include the following fields: first name, comma, last name, comma, address, comma, phone, email address, and desired currency. This is the text to extract from, colon, and then I'm gonna put in my email body parameter. And we can do that by clicking add and then click in your prompt, and here you should find that input that we have just created on the right. There we go. So we are literally with this prompt telling AI Builder what we would like it to do. The cool thing is that we can just immediately test it by clicking this button, test prompt. It is now of course taking that sample data in its test. And as you can see, it actually works because it says here is the extracted information: first name Andy, last name Bernard, address Office Lane, and so on. Now the only difference is that I don't really want this as a text response. I want to have it in a JSON format because that makes it way easier to use eventually in Power Automate. And to do that, we can click the third icon, which is output, and then switch from the default value of text to JSON. And if we now just retest our prompt, this is what I want. If you don't know what a JSON is, it is just a way of representing data, because the first part here will be the field name and this will be the actual value. And this again makes it way easier afterwards to use it in Power Automate. And you can see that it's still correct, right? My address field, for example, has the correct value. My phone field has the correct value. Email address has the correct value, and so on. So we are done with this prompt model already. All we need to do is click Save at the bottom. And once that is done, there we go. Your custom prompt has been saved. You can access it from the model space page or use it in a flow or app, which is exactly what we will do. But first, let's create our second AI model. So let's just close off this one. Here we go. That's the model that we literally just created. It is automatically published as well, so it is in fact ready to be used. But now let's create our model for processing the ID card image that will be attached to the email. And there's multiple ways of doing this, but the easiest in my opinion is just to click AI Hub again, and then click AI Models, this middle top button here. And as you can see, also here we have a bunch of templates that we could choose. And I think I have seen an actual template to process ID cards, but we are going to again start from scratch. We're going to say extract custom information from documents. So click this one. This is just a little description. We can say, okay, create custom model. And once this is loaded, as you can see on the left here, we just need to go through a couple of steps. Super easy. Let's go. First of all, in this case, we have fixed template documents. So click that one and then click next at the bottom. Next up, we need to tell the model which fields we eventually want to extract. And in our case, that's going to be first name, last name, and the national registration number. So let's do just that by clicking add. First up is a text field called first name. Done. Next up is another text field called last name. Done. And our registration number is also a text field, national reg number. Number even. Done. And by the way, by doing it like this, by starting from a very generic custom model, this will be very much applicable. For example, if you want to process invoices or purchase orders, it's the exact same process you can follow. So that's all we have to do in this step, tell which information that we actually want to extract. So let's click next. And now we need to kind of feed the model, right? We need to say, okay, these are some sample data documents or images, whatever we prefer, that you have to train yourself with. And that is what we're going to do. So new collection, we can rename it if we want to. I'm just going to say collection 1, and then I'm just going to click the plus sign. And all we can really now do is add documents. We could also have uploaded them to SharePoint first and then take it from there, but I'm just going to go with my device. And as you can see in the zip file, we will have a folder for episode 2, IDs for training the model. These 10 IDs I am going to upload to the model. So select all of these and then say open. Just a little confirmation that these are all the documents or images really that are going to be uploaded to our model. Upload 10 documents. Of course, if you have your own documents or your own images, feel free to use those as well. And one golden tip that I can give you here, and it's pretty logical, the more data you feed into your model, the smarter it gets. We are keeping things pretty simple as always, but just know that that is how it works. This is done uploading and I'm just gonna click done. So I now have a collection 1 with 10 documents. Again, we could add more collections. The more data, the smarter your model gets, but we're gonna keep things simple. So that's it for me. Next. And now this is one of the fun steps, because for all 10 of these uploaded images, I now have to tag those 3 fields that I have told the model that we eventually want to extract. So I'm going to start with this first one and I can just click the name. This is the last name. This is the first name. So I'm going to click this one first and then say, well, this is my last name field. You can see that it gets tagged here. When I do the same for this one, first name, and the same for this one, national registration number, you can see that my first document, or my first image, I should say, is now completely tagged. And I need to do the exact same thing for the other 9 images. So I'm probably going to fast forward this because it's 9 times exactly the same thing as what I just did. And by the way, if you think you messed up, you can always go back and then double check. And if you click it again, it will untag this, right? So now my national registration number is untagged for this second one, and I can just retag it like this. And there we go. You tagged all your documents. Click next to review your model. Don't mind if I do. So just a little summary of the model here. We have one collection. We have tagged all 3 fields for all 10 of our examples. All that is left to do is to click train. And as you can see here, this might take a few minutes depending on the size of your training data, which is quite small for our case. You can close this window and come back later. Go to models. And you can see that my model is now in the status of training. And this will go pretty fast. So I'm just going to wait for like 30 seconds and then refresh. So let's just hit refresh here. And there we go. Status changed to trained. Now, before we publish it, of course, we want to give this a better name. So what you can do is click the 3 dots here and click details. Then up top, click settings. And here you can change the name into HA_AI builder _ID card extraction, and then click save at the bottom. Apart from this name, we can also see more info here. We can see an accuracy score, which it kind of calculated based on the sample data, of course, that we fed it. And we can also see that same score per field. So for some reason, he is more sure of the national registration number than the first and the last name. Again, the more data you feed it, probably the higher you will get this number, because your model is simply getting smarter then. The last thing before we publish it is do a quick test. So just click here, quick test. Then we can drop a sample document, in our case, one of those sample ID cards, upload from my device. And then I'm going to go to the for testing the model. And I'm just going to start with this first one. Double click. It is now analyzing. It is now basically applying that AI model to this image. And in fact, it gives me with a 95% confidence score, Doe as the last name, Jane as the first name, and with a 99% confidence score, it indicates this part of the image as the actual national registration number. Start over, we can do another test with our second card. And the same thing happens. Fisher, 95% sure, Kendra as the first name, and again, 99% for the number. So this all seems pretty good. I'm just going to click close here, and then I'm going to finally click publish. As you can see, this changes to use model, and you can also verify the status of it to published. This means we can actually now start using it in, for example, Power Automate. But before we do that, let's add these two models that we created to our solution. So solutions, ticket hub, and here we can just say add existing AI model, click, and we can literally just select both of these. These are the two models that we created just now, and then click add. And there we go. We now have two AI models inside of our solution. Now guys, a quick disclaimer before we dive into Power Automate. Like all videos in this series, this is not a deep dive into the actual tools. The main goal here is to show you how these tools could work together when you combine them into one big solution. But that being said, if you have any ideas or suggestions, especially AI Builder or Power Automate related, drop it in the comment section so we can take that into account for our future videos. Okay, Power Automate. Here we go. Within this Ticket Hub solution, we are going to create a new Power Automate flow, but in human language, these are the steps that we want. We want to trigger the flow when that specific customer request email comes in. Then we want to use our first AI model to extract the information that we need from the email body. Then we want to process the ID card attachment with the second AI model that we have built. Once we have done both of those, we are going to compare if the first name and the last name in both of those results are consistent. If they are not, we're immediately going to send an email reply to that customer that sent us the email. But if that data is consistent, we are going to start the approval process. And if our customer approval user actually approves the request, the customer will get created in our system in the Dataverse table, of course, with the isApproved field set to true. If the request is rejected, obviously it's going to be the exact same thing, but we're going to set the isApproved field to false. And we are going to send the customer an email saying that we have received their request, that we have actually created them as a customer in our system, but we do want to validate a couple of things data-wise. That is the human version of what we are going to try and create in Power Automate. So from within your solution, go to New, Automation, Cloudflow, Automated. Let's give it the name HA_process new customer flow. And for the trigger, we are going to look for when an email arrives. And this is the one that we need, V3. It's just the newest version, so click that and then click Create. This will also create a connection reference, which is perfectly normal. And once this is signed in, you should see this. We can expand this even more by clicking Show Advanced Options, because these are quite important. We want to specify in which folder that email is going to land in. We're just going to leave this at Inbox. We are going to change Include Attachments to Yes. I'm also going to change Only with Attachments to Yes. Why? Well, part of the assumption that we made that this email is coming from some system that is already in place we can also assume, or we are going to assume, that our email will have that ID card attached to it. Another extra filter I can do is the subject filter, because again, in the assumption, I also know that our email is going to have the subject new customer. If it doesn't have this in the subject, our flow will not trigger. That is kind of the idea behind all of this. And that is all for my trigger, so let's just fold that one. Then we just have a couple of variables that we will use later on, but I'm going to initialize them now. New step, init var, and you should see initialize variable. And let's give this the name var name check is valid. It is a Boolean type, and I want to initialize this with the false expression. So make sure you click add dynamic content if you don't see this window, then click expression and then type in false and click OK. Just to make sure that this is actually the Boolean false value. For the second variable, I want to do the exact same thing. So new step, init var, initialize variable, and this will be called var national registration number. And I'm just going to set this as the type to a string, and I'm going to leave the initial value empty. And the third and last variable, new step, init var, initialize variable. Let's go for var approval comment, type string, and let's just leave it empty as the initial value. All right, with that, we're going to save our flow for the first time. There we go, saved, and now we can start using our AI models. Let's fold this one and then say new step. And if we just type in prompt, you should see create text with GPT using a prompt. Click. This again will create a connection reference, which is fine. And now all we have to do is say, okay, what is the prompt that we want to use? There are some pre-built ones there already, but this is the one that we created, of course. And this then gives you two additional parameters. The second one we don't really need in this case, additional context, but the first one, this is where we now have to define which text it has to run this model on, basically. And obviously this will be the body from when an email arrives from our trigger. So click body like that. So this will eventually give that output in the JSON format, but we're not going to use that right away. We are first going to tackle the attachment of our email. And of course, technically, this email could have multiple attachments. So what I'm going to do is create a new step, apply to each. And in this one, I'm going to set the attachments. If I just look for that and scroll down, all the way down, you will see attachments, which is the file attachments for the message, aka the attachments that are added to the email. I click that, and the first thing that I'm going to do is just a little extra check on the attachment name. So what I can do is add an action here, and then choose the condition, which normally is the first element that you see by default in this actions list. So condition, and I'm going to say, if I click in here, and if I look for name, so attachment name is what I want here. If this is equal to, this is not really what I need. I want to use the contains, because part of the assumption is that the file that is attached to the email is actually called exactly like this. So ID underscore card underscore whatever number. So I can say attachment name contains ID underscore card underscore, because that's kind of the static part, right, of the file name. And if I really want to, because the extension is also included in this name, I can say add row. And again, look for name here, look for the attachment's name, contains PNG. So I'm doing a double check, that's why this is set to end. I am checking if ID underscore card underscore is part of the attachment name, and I am checking if PNG is also part of that name, just as a little extra check before we do anything with the actual file. Because if this is not true, if at least one of these is false, it goes into the if no branch, and we basically just don't want to do anything there. So we can leave this one empty. But of course, we are going to focus on the if yes branch. The first thing that we want to do is to implement our second AI builder model. So in this one here, in the if yes branch, click add an action. And if I scroll down a little bit and say extract information from documents, this is the action that I need in the AI Builder connector, extract information from documents. Just like before here, we need to now select the AI model, which in this case will be our second model. We can only choose one. The AI Builder _ ID card extraction, that's exactly the model that I would like. My form type will be of type PNG in this scenario. And the actual form or the actual file will of course be the attachment. And we can look for content, I think. Yep, attachments, content is the one that I need. Click. This is the value that we want for the form parameter here. And that's it. That's the initial step that we want to do when this check passes. Let's save our flow again, because after this step, we of course now have the output from our second AI Builder model, and we already had the output from our first AI model up here. And it will give you these warnings, which I also now get. I'm going to ignore that for now. This is kind of saying, hey, you have a create text with GPT using a prompt action. We kind of want you to do an extra approval on that, which should be right after it. I'm not going to do that, so we will kind of be stuck with this warning, but so be it. Because I'm just going to move on here in the if yes branch, because after this step, I'm going to go to condition again, add an action condition, and I now want to check if the first name from this first output is equal to the first name of this output, and the same thing for the last name. And do note that this will be capital sensitive. I am not going to bother with that, but just a little heads up. What I am going to do is just look for first and scroll down to see that first _ name, which is the actual output field from that first AI Builder model. This is the one that I need. If this is equal to, if I again look for first name value is the one which is coming from the second AI Builder model. That's the one that I need. So I want to compare this first name with this first name value. Click. Because the value is the actual text. And just like before, I'm going to add another row. I'm going to say last now. Scroll down to see last _ name output from that first AI Builder model is equal to, if I type in last again, last name value. If both of these are true, then and only then I want to continue with my approval process. If at least one of these is false, we just want to send an email to the customer saying, hey, we have received your customer request. We can't add you to our system because your name information is inconsistent. We could do it here in the if no branch, but we're going to tackle that in a minute. Let's first focus here on the if yes. If both of these are true, that means that our initial name check has passed, and we are going to add an action in here, set variable. That's the action we need. The variable will be var name check is valid, and we want to set this in this case to expression true. We have initialized it to false up here, and in this case, only in this case, we're going to set it to true if our name check is in fact valid. And the second thing that I want to do in that scenario is set another variable. Set variable. And this will be var national registration number, and I'm going to set this to, if I look for this one, national registration number value. So we can use this variable in our flow later on. Okay, let's save again. We will get that warning again. There we go. But as you can see, it is saved up here. So that is all good. So it's going to do this loop for each attachment. But of course, we know there will only be one attachment where this condition will be true. So I'm going to fold apply to each. And I am now simply going to check if my variable called var name check is valid is true. If it is still set to false, that means that basically or nothing was found in my attachments that passed this check, or that my name check failed. And in both scenarios, we want to send the customer an email. So I'm going to say new step, condition. On this side of the condition, I'm going to put my var name check is valid, and I am going to check if this is set to the expression true. And now let's start in the if no branch, because if this is not true, We just want to send the email, so add an action, send an email, v2, click. And let's go add dynamic content, and we can now maybe use the email address, which is also an output from our first AI Builder model, to reply to the customer with our email. The subject will be more information is required. And the body I will just copy paste again from that text file I mentioned earlier. It is also included in that zip file if you want the same text, but basically this makes sense, right? Hi, we have received your customer request and have noticed that the naming information is not consistent. Please contact our support, blah, blah, blah. Now, of course, in the if yes branch here is where the approval functionality should kick in. So add an action, start, not tart, start and wait for an approval. That's the one we need. Again, a connection reference is being created. Now, several options here. We're going to keep it simple. As always, we're just going to say first to respond. We are only going to send it to one person, so it doesn't really matter. For the title, we can say new customer request. I'm going to assign this to my customer approval Tim user. And for the details, this is just like building an email body, really. So we can do whatever we want in here. But again, let's keep it simple. Please approve or reject this new customer. And then we can just say a couple of fields like first name, last name, address, and national registration number. Thanks. And after these ones, we're just going to put some dynamic content here. Let's go for first name, last name, all coming from that first prompt-based AI Builder model, address, and this one is going to be, of course, our variable var national registration number. And that's it. Again, we're keeping it very simple. You can do way more things with this, but that is not the scope of this video. So let's just save it again. And the first thing I now want to do once this approval is sent, I want to capture the comments that they enter when they approve or reject it. So what I can do is add an action, set variable right here. I'm going to choose the var approval comment variable. And for this field, I'm going to look for comments, responses, comments. And as soon as I click that, you will see that an apply to each is automatically created. Why? Well, in theory, multiple people could be the approver, right? In our case, we know it's going to be one person, but in real life, this might be multiple people. So it also will try and capture all the responses. If that is your use case, you probably don't want to use set here because it will just override each time a comment is actually entered. You might need to use an array or something like that. Not in scope for this video, but just a little heads up. In our case, we're just going to capture the one comment that our approval user will actually enter. And then after this, so let's maybe fold this apply to each that was created. After this, we want to check what the outcome of the approval is. So add an action, condition, and we want to, in this left side field, have the outcome of the approval. And we want to check if this is equal to literally the word approve with the capital A, because it's basically checking a text value in the end. So make sure you have it exactly like this. Now, in both cases, we want to create the customer in our Dataverse table. But in the if yes branch, we want to set the is approved field to true. And of course, in the if no branch, we want to set that same field to false. And in the if no, we also want to send an additional email to the customer. So let's do that, but let's start with the if yes branch. Add an action, add a new row, because now we need Dataverse. There it is, premium, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Add a new row, click. The table name in my case will be my table that I created in the previous episode, which was HA. Can I type in here? HA underscore customers. There we go. It only now shows me the required fields, but if I click show advanced options, it will show me the other fields as well. And now I can just start filling in desired currency. Well, let me just look for desired currency. We have that coming from our first AI builder model. Email, same thing. We could choose the from field from the email if that was the case, but we're just going to go with the email address here. And this, of course, is approved. We are going to set to yes because we are in fact in the if yes or the happy flow branch. Address will be the address from the output there. Customer number is an auto number field, so we can leave this blank. Dataverse will fill this in for us. First name obviously is first name. These are also default Dataverse fields. We just need to fill in last name here, last name, and of course the registration number with our variable. Phone will be phone from the prompt, and that's it. These are just default Dataverse fields. Let's do the exact same thing on the other side in the if no branch. Add a new row. Add a new row. Same table here. HA_customers. And I'm just going to fill these in quickly with the same values as I did on the left side here. Of course, this will be the main difference. Is approved. I'm already going to set that to no. Okay, check. Maybe let's save our flow again and get rid of the warning. And all we have left to do is in the if no branch here, add an action. And again, look for send email v2. And we are going to look for the email field here, email address. The subject will be request rejected. And again, I'm just going to copy paste some dummy text in here. We have received your new customer request, but it was rejected for now. Please contact our support at blah, blah, blah to clear out some details. And what we could add as a little bonus here is say approver comments or something like that, and then add in the var approval comment variable. And maybe we can put that in bold, something like that. Okay, and that's it. Let's for the last time save our flow, kill the warning, and then let's go back to this overview. And it is now time to actually test this. So to keep things pretty simple, I'm going to test 4 scenarios. I'm going to send 4 emails with my admin user. So my admin user is the customer, so to speak. The first scenario will be an email with another subject, so that shouldn't even trigger my flow. The second scenario will be a valid subject email, so it should trigger the flow, but I'm going to make sure that the names don't match. So between the ID card and the actual email body text, the names don't match. So all that should happen is that I, as the admin user, get an email reply saying, hey, your information was incorrect, or whatever we put in there. In the third and the fourth scenario, the names will also match, so the approval should get started, and then I have one testing scenario to approve it and the other one to reject it. Let's go. So new email, I'm gonna send this to myself, of course, and the subject will be not the subject we agreed upon. And the body doesn't even matter because this should not trigger the flow. All right, send. The second email, of course, to myself again, with the correct subject, so new customer. I'm going to once again copy paste the text from the text file that I mentioned earlier that you can download as well, which is this one. And as the email address, of course, I'm going to fill in my admin user email. I am going to add an ID card, the ID card 1, like this. And the only issue is that on that ID card, my last name is Doe and not Smith. All right, let's send that email as well. Next email to myself, new customer, with this text, Kendra Fisher is the name. And I'm also going to add ID card 2 that actually has Kendra Fisher as the name on it. And again, I'm going to add my admin user email address in here as well. All right, send. And the very last test to myself, new customer. So the last one that I send, I will probably reject, and let's end on a high note by actually approving this customer. So that would be this text, Jennifer Golden, and again, I'm going to fill in my email address. And I am going to add ID card number 3, which also is in fact the ID card for Jennifer Golden. Send. And by now, to be honest, I would have expected a reply for this situation where the names don't match. So let's just go to make.powerapps.com in our solution, and we are going to click our flow right here, process new customer flow. And in here, we in fact see 3 entries, which is good, not 4, because the first one had a different subject, so that didn't trigger the flow. That is good. These 2 are running, which is also good, but I'm going to check this one because this one is failed. So let's check that run by clicking the timestamp, and let's see where it failed. In the send an email action, okay. The content was not a valid JSON, error while parsing JSON. Unexpected character encountered while parsing value r.path. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure what this error is about, but if we just leave it for now, you can see that my logic actually worked, right? Because it went into the if no branch, and that means that it actually failed that name test. Because if I go into this apply to each and I open up this condition, you can see that in fact it found the attachment, it extracted the information, and then in this condition, this is where the name check takes place, and this results to false. So that's how I know my logic works. Again, I'm not really sure why this email didn't come through, but I'm not gonna bother. I'm gonna move on to my other scenarios because these 2 are still running. And they are running because they are waiting for my approval or rejection with that customer approval user. So let's have a look and log in with that user. Okay, and I just logged into my Teams on my computer with that customer approval Tim user. And as you can see, I have a couple of activities here, 2 of which are about my customer request approval. So I'm just gonna take this first one and then say, I'm gonna reject this. So I'm gonna say your address seems incorrect. Just a little simple comment, reject. The other one, this one, I'm gonna leave the comment empty and I'm just going to approve. All right, final status approved, final status rejected for that previous one. So let's go back to our flow and see what happened. So let's refresh here by clicking this arrow. So this one succeeded, which is the approved one. I am pretty sure of that. Let's just double check it by clicking the timestamp. And then go to this condition and then to the final condition. And indeed, this is the check if the outcome was approved or rejected. And you can see that it went into the if yes branch and my customer is in fact, or should be at least, created in Dataverse. And we'll check that in a minute, but I do want to see where this one then failed. So I'm going to click this timestamp. And then I'm going to go to the very same spot in the flow. There we go. So again, it's giving me this weird error while it was trying to send the email. I think now that I look at it, it has something to do with the bold text that I wanted to implement here, because this seems a little much. I might double check that and get back to you. But what I do want to know, this one succeeded, right? So my Dataverse record for this one should also be added. So that means we should now have 2 customers in our Dataverse table. Only one way to find out. Let's go back to our solution, to my Dataverse table, customer, and here we go. We have 2 customers in there, and let me just go to the edit and then rearrange some fields here. There we go, and we can now actually see the data that we at least expected to see, right? Because Jennifer Golden was that last email that I sent, which was the to be approved scenario, and indeed the is approved is ticked to yes. And Kendra Fisher was in fact the rejected scenario, as is also reflected in this data. And you can also see that the rest of my fields that are extracted by the AI builder models are in fact also filled, and that my customer number was automatically filled when the record was created by Dataverse itself. Now, for full transparency, there are probably other scenarios as well that we haven't made 100% waterproof, especially as far as error handling and all of that goes, I know. So if you are struggling with something like this, let me know down in the comment section and hopefully we can work it out. And there you go, guys, a fully automated customer creation system as part of our Hyperautomation support ticket solution. Now, I know that this only covers the scenario and the assumption where we get our initial customer request by email. So what we could do is build a simple Power App maybe to easily create those customers directly into our Dataverse table. Well, we're not quite going to do that, but in the next episode, we will integrate Power Apps into our solution as well. We will expand our hyperautomation ecosystem by creating a Canvas app and a model-driven app, again with a little Power Automate on the side. So a big episode is coming up next, guys. Be warned. I will see you there, and for now, thanks for watching. Take care.